morning and welcome back to Athletes Incorporated. You can catch us on Roku, ibtv.us, or on YouTube. Harold Johnson and Trey Johnson here to talk about that crazy weekend we had last weekend with the NFL playoffs. You start out, Trey. What did you think about the Eagles game with the
Vikings?
With the Vikings, which I called the Vikings went from the miracle in Minnesota to the fiasco in Philly.
Well, first of all, the score was 38-7. If you didn't catch the game, guys, we're both wrong on our predictions. I think, obviously, if you know anything about football, momentum is everything. And you could tell that the miracle in Minneapolis was just too much for them. And they weren't able to settle down at any point in the game and really start playing football. And Dad, did you know, I read this on the way over here, but did you know that the Vikings all season never had a pick return for a touchdown? And it seemed after that they couldn't get over that hump. So
right. And then when they lost the safety.
Yeah.
And they weren't deep enough in any spot. Yeah. Great defensive team as long as they had everybody on board. But when they lost their big safety, not only did they lose a person that was probably the most productive person on that back end, but they lost the person that held them, the glue that held them together, and that leadership that they needed, and the experience that they needed. So the young guys really were put into a tough spot. Then offensively, the quarterback spot really showed up at that point. It really showed up that some people before this game were talking about that he was perhaps a franchise quarterback.
Case Keenum,
And no, he's
not throwing him softballs. Not throwing him softballs.
He's a really good backup. What this does do is it sets up for a 3-quarterback
competition.
Yeah, and I don't see where they're going to be able to keep all 3 of them. Teddy Bridgewater's the youngest, but he's coming back from the injury. Most people think that Sam Bradford is the best,
right?
But he's so injury prone.
Yeah, right.
And then
he's getting paid $14 million too.
Yes,
money is the language of football.
Yeah. So and then you have Case Keenum,
who's an unrestricted free agent next year. So he's getting a lot of teams. It's a quarterback starved league. You're going to see a lot of people throw money at Case Keenum that he doesn't deserve, but he's got to take the money at all times. On the other side, speaking of quarterbacks and backup quarterbacks, what do you think about Nick Foles?
Well, you know, it showed up there too. He's really good. I don't see a franchise mark on him though. And when you talk about you have Wentz coming back, he really is a star of the future, and he's going to work hard and he'll be back. But Foles already said, I'm happy to come back in the backup role. Right. So if he does that's really smart because they're going to pay him to be in that backup role. He's led the team before, you know. Whether or not they're able to win the Super Bowl or not, he took them to the Super Bowl. Right. They'll be relatively healthy. Right. They got a good running game. I think that they have a good shot. Yeah. They have a good shot. But now, when they're moving on from there, what did you think about the Jaguars against the Pats? What do you think?
That was the game of the day, folks, and we called it the game of the day. Just so you guys know, if you didn't catch the score, it was 20-24. Patriots obviously edging out the Jags, and I think experience and having a better quarterback. If you have a great quarterback, you always have a great shot. And whether you like him or hate him, Tom Brady's the best quarterback of all time when everything's said and done. Defense does win championships, but if you can't get to the quarterback, it doesn't matter. So,
well, my take is that I agree with all that except for one thing, and that's that the Jaguars lost because at the end of the game they started playing not to lose instead of playing to win. Yeah. They got tight at the end. The play calling became very conservative. They put it all on the defense. And the defense is great. But how long are you going to be able to stand up against Tom Brady when you keep giving him the ball back and giving the ball in positive area of the field? Right. So they, instead of pushing, keeping that pedal on the metal, because at halftime, they only scored a field goal in the second half, correct? That wasn't going to be enough to win it.
Without Robert Gronkowski, folks. If you didn't catch the game, Robert Gronkowski was out in the second quarter, got concussed. Patriots still came back and won the game.
Yep.
I think they played a lot not to lose, but also on the defensive side of the ball, they started doing things that they weren't necessarily always doing. They have a great four-man front. They weren't getting pressure. They weren't blitzing. They were playing a lot of single high man, which they don't really do a whole lot.
Right. Right.
They didn't. I really think they're going to have to look at getting a quarterback in the offseason. I don't think Blake Bortles is going to do it for them. I think they're going to be the market for a Eli Manning, a Case Keenum, even a Kirk Cousins.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, if they get a good quarterback, they'll be right back there next year. So
I think probably Eli Manning makes the best fit because of his contact with Tom Coughlin.
Right. Yeah.
And Tom Coughlin knows that he still has a lot of football to play.
Yeah.
And if you allow him a little bit of time, he'll be able to. But you have to think, folks, coming back next year, the Jaguars look to be a beast.
Yeah.
They got a great young running back, and they got a two-headed running back thing.
TJ Yeldon really came on.
Yes.
Folks, if you guys check out TJ Yeldon, just check out some highlights, but he's really starting to become a third down back. And what I mean by a third down back, a back that can run the ball and that also can catch out of the backfield, kind of a double threat. So they're looking good. They drafted well, and that's what you need to do in this league to win.
And he blocks well. That's everyone this year is going to be looking to try to duplicate or imitate what the Saints did.
Yeah.
If you have 4 rookies that come in that can actually start to not just get a little bit of playing time, but contribute heavily to what's going on, you're going to be able to have a successful organization. And that's what this draft is about. You know, when you look at these the final 2 teams here, and you look at what they're doing, you look at the templates that they're using. Of course, you see what the Patriots do. They just keep right on ticking, just like a Timex. They keep right on ticking. And they're going to do the same thing. I think last year, the big running back that LeGarrette Blount played for the Patriots, he had 18 touchdowns for them last year. He's only had 2 or 3 touchdowns with the Eagles. But when they saw that, hey, he wants to go elsewhere, there's more money for him, Patriots said, hey, fine, move on. And they just plug somebody else in. They have a certain person, physically and mentally, what that fits with that organization. And that's what other people don't look at. Other people are drafting people and signing people pretty much purely on what they see the physical talent is and what they might look at what their numbers were. The Patriots take it a step further. They go into who the person is and how they are going to behave, really, and react when things get tough.
Yeah, so speaking of that, and speaking of drafting and templates, changing gears for a second, if you guys didn't catch it, on Saturday, they had the North-South Senior Bowl. The South dragging the North 45-16. The North team was coached by our very own Denver Broncos. The South team was coached by the Houston Texans. Last week, if you didn't catch it, we had the East-West Shrine game, and the West won 14-10. And really, the only person they talked about in that game is J.T. Barrett, who is the used to quarterback for the Ohio State Buckeyes. And then there was one other game. Dad, what was that other game?
They have a new one, the NFLPA,
okay,
which is the lower level all-star game.
Right.
And some of the kids that have that we've not even heard of, period.
Right.
So last year, the kid that really ended up playing good for the Chicago Bears, he was in the NFLPA game. So this is just another chance to see some good players.
See some good players, see some good drafts.
So one thing was different. Baker Mayfield made a big noise in the it was the last game, North-South yesterday.
The North-South game, yeah.
And they asked him what would he do if Cleveland took him number 1. He said he'd do the same thing that he did for Oklahoma. He said, I'll do whatever's needed, and I'll take them from being nothing to really being something. You look at Baker Mayfield. He's, as you were saying, when's the last time you've seen someone taken in the first round who's under 6 foot tall?
And folks at home, Google that. And if you catch us on YouTube, put in the comment section below a top 5, top 10 pick that was under 6 foot quarterback that was drafted even in the first round. Just put it in the comment section below. But
right, because I don't believe that one of the all-time greats, if not the greatest, right there for the player, Joe Montana.
Yeah.
was drafted in the first round, and he was only 5. Drew Brees wasn't drafted in the first round. So for Baker Mayfield to be in that top 5, that's in particularly with what, you know, when they go to talk to them about their personalities, and he does seem to be out of control. But that, you know, we'll see what happens with that, and we'll talk more on that later. But we have that set up, folks. That the Super Bowl, the New England Patriots again against the Philadelphia Eagles, and that'll be a good one. Next time we will bring up that, and we'll also talk more about the draft, and we'll be able to really get some stuff taken care of. All right, thanks.